Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today at the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. My name is Robert Hawkins, and I am the MLA for Yellowknife Centre, as well as the Chair of the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. Before we begin our public portion or our briefing, I would like members to introduce themselves so they're officially on the record. I'm going to start with my far left and begin there and work around the table. I believe we have at least one member online, and we'll then just allow her to introduce herself and then proceed from there. That said, if we begin through introductions.
Good morning, welcome. My name is George Nirsu, MLA for the Mackenzie Delta.
Good morning, Danny McNeely, MLA for the Sawtooth.
Julian Morse, MLA for Frame Lake and Yellowknife.
Good morning, I'm Shauna Morgan, MLA for Yellowknife North.
And online, as mentioned, I believe we have one member, if she would introduce herself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Kate Reed. I am the MLA for Great Slave here in Yellowknife.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Today we have with us is the Minister of Industry, Tourism and Investment and the officials, and we are here to hear a public briefing on Tourism 2030. That said, I'm looking forward to this briefing as all briefings, and I know I'm as eager as our millions of subscribers to see what you have here today for us in the public. That said, Minister, if you'd begin with your opening comments, and then we will proceed to the presentation, and we will figure it out from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the Government of the Northwest Territories' new 5-year strategic framework for tourism development in the Northwest Territories. I have with me here today Pamela Strand, Deputy Minister of Industry, Tourism and Investment, Sahara Morin, Assistant Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Heidi Kane, Director of Tourism and Parks, and Donnelly DeMarc, Executive Director of Northwest Territories Tourism. Tourism continues to play an important role in the Northwest Territories economy, not only as a generator of visitor spending and employment, but as a contributor to economic diversification, regional development, and community well-being. It supports small businesses across the territories, creates pathways for youth and Indigenous employment, and helps maximize the value of existing infrastructure that benefits residents as much as visitors. Over the past several years, the sector faced unprecedented challenges from the global pandemic to climate-related disruptions such as wildfires and flooding. The previous strategy, Tourism 2025, was developed during that period and focused squarely on stabilization and recovery. That work helped prevent widespread business closures, retain core capacity, and reestablish visitor confidence. Today's discussion marks a deliberate shift. Tourism 2030, Sustainable Journeys Ahead, recognizes that while the sector is still navigating ongoing pressures, it has reached a point where recovery efforts alone are no longer sufficient. The focus now is on long-term stability, resilience, and readiness for growth that aligns with community capacity and workforce realities. This strategy was shaped directly by what we heard from industry operators, Indigenous governments, communities, residents, and partners across the territory. The message was clear. There is a strong support for tourism, but future growth must be intentional, well-sequenced, and grounded in local priorities. Capacity, particularly workforce and infrastructure, remains a key constraint, and addressing it is essential to realizing tourism's full potential. As you'll see in the presentation, Tourism 2030 is outcome-focused. It clearly links public investment to measurable results, strengthens accountability, and aligns tourism programming with broader economic workforce objectives of the Government of the Northwest Territories. It is not about pursuing growth at all costs, but about ensuring tourism delivers lasting value to Northerners. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I would like to invite Heidi Kane to walk the committee through the key elements of the strategy, including what we learned from Tourism 25, the strategic priorities for the next 5 years, and what is new in this approach. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to committee.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, when you're ready, happy to walk through, please.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to present our new tourism strategy today. This strategy was shaped by engagement across the NWT with input from 285 participants through online surveys and in-person meetings in Inuvik, Fort Simpson, Det'anchogh, Yellowknife, Norman Wells, Hay River, and Lutzel Cay. Why does tourism matter? Tourism delivers benefits that extend beyond tourism itself. It provides economic diversification across regions, community well-being and pride, youth and Indigenous employment pathways, infrastructure that benefits residents and visitors alike, and resilient, adaptable northern economy. In 2024-25, we had the pleasure of welcoming over 75,600 visitors, reaching $155 million in visitor spending. While recovery and visitation during 24-25 was moderated by lingering wildfire and flooding concerns from the previous season, overall growth has remained on an upward trajectory. Notably, visitor spending has increased at a faster rate than visitation, indicating stronger per-person economic impact. Tourism represented approximately 3% of NWT's GDP in 23-24. That's nearly double the national average of 1.6% in Canada. Nearly 1 in 12 jobs in the NWT are linked to tourism. And we have 159 licensed tourism operators across the NWT. Tourism 2030 marks a deliberate shift from recovery to sustainability. Tourism 2025 focused on recovery and stabilization following COVID-19, floods, and wildfires. That work was necessary and largely successful in preventing sector collapse and reestablishing core activity. The sector has stabilized relatively and is positioned for growth. Tourism 2030 looks towards economic growth and diversification, stronger regional community and Indigenous participation, long-term sustainability and resilience, and long-term sustainability and resilience, Tourism 2030 responds to gaps and opportunities identified by communities, industry, Indigenous governments, and partners, and is designed to deliver measurable outcomes and not just programs. Tourism 2025, the previous strategy, was our roadmap to recovery. This strategy was implemented during the COVID-19 global travel disruption and was set out to reactivate tourism from a standstill, enable recovery, and pave the way for growth with a focus on regional centers. It was done through investing in infrastructure, enhancements to products and services, and the development of new products and services, building capacity through training and mentorships, enhanced communication and marketing, and gathering and reporting data, information, and insights to guide and evaluate investments. Approximately $10 million in COVID-19 support was also delivered through programs in partnership with CanNor. The original targets set out for 2025 were 103,000 annual visitors and $170 million in visitor spending. As you can see, we did not quite hit those targets, but despite missing original targets, Tourism 2025 prevented widespread business closures, maintained tourism capacity across regions, supported workforce training and retention, rebuilt operator readiness and visitor confidence, and positioned the sector for forward-looking growth. What we learned from 2025 was that industry and community engagement highlighted that there is a strong support for tourism growth across communities, industry, Indigenous governments, and partners. At the same time, several key constraints were clearly identified. Workforce shortages remain the primary limitation to sector growth. Infrastructure gaps, particularly in smaller communities, continue to affect visitor experience. There is a strong demand for Indigenous and cultural tourism, but current supply is limited. Improved timelines and quality of tourism data is needed to support decision-making. Marketing efforts must align with industry and community capacity and not solely demand generation. There was a consistent message that future tourism growth must be closely aligned with community capacity, cultural priorities, and long-term sustainability. The 5 priority areas shown here are a direct response to what we heard throughout the engagement process. Capacity building addresses workforce and business readiness gaps. Enhancing visitor experience focuses on quality, safety, as well as resident sentiment, and ensuring the value of tourism is realized across the territory. Expanding sustainable tourism offerings speaks to diversification across regions, seasons, and encouraging Indigenous-led participation. Marketing and communications ensure demand is aligned with capacity and not just about attracting visitors, but attracting the right visitor, the highly engaged guest. Leveraging data strengthens accountability and investment decisions. This is both our industry research to ensure we are staying relevant, as well as monitoring and managing the performance of our programming to make sure it's achieving the intended outcomes. These priorities are designed to work together as an integrated framework, not just as individual initiatives. Tourism 2030 is designed to be outcome-focused. Stemming from the priorities, Tourism 2030 invests in people, communities, programs, infrastructure, marketing, and data. Those investments translate to concrete activities, training, mentorship, product development, outreach, visitor services, and research. The strategy is clear about who we are trying to influence: operators, youth, Indigenous participants, communities, and partners. These outcomes align with broader economic and workforce objectives and can be monitored through existing performance measurement frameworks. Outcomes are staged deliberately over time. In the short term, we're expected to improve uptake on programs, more trained residents, and stronger community understanding of tourism's value. In the medium term, the focus shifts to equality and consistency, and expanded offerings and tangible community infrastructure improvements. Over the longer term, the strategy aims to position the NWT as a leader in Indigenous tourism, supported by a skilled workforce and delivering high-quality visitor experience that translates into GDP contribution. Visitation and spending is reported annually through a report titled A Year in Review. This report is posted on the GNWT website, and provides information on visitor volumes, spending, visitor origins, travel purposes, and overall travel patterns. Tourism investments are also reported annually through ITI's Grants and Contributions report, which provides transparency on how tourism funding is allocated across programs, regions, and recipients. Together, these reports support Tourism 2030 by showing both how investments are made and how the tourism sector is evolving over time, allowing us to track progress from early program uptake to longer-term economic outcomes. What's new in T2030? Community and residents are foundational to sustainable tourism growth, making community readiness and meaningful participation paramount. Existing successful mentorship and training programs remain important and are reframed in 2030 to support succession and sustainability. Growth must be aligned with industry readiness. Tourism 2030 introduces a new industry capacity support program, which includes a formal gap analysis to identify these constraints so future investments are evidence-based rather than reactive. Prioritizing those high-value markets that deliver stronger economic returns. For example, Tourism 2030 strengthens investments in the Conference Bureau. Business travelers represent one of the highest spend market segments and tend to travel all year round and provide stable demand for accommodation, transportation, and services. The Tourism Product Diversification and Marketing Program has supported tourism business with business planning or transition planning, enhancing current products and diversifying product offerings by developing new products. The Community Tourism Infrastructure Contribution Program supports the development and enhancement of community tourism assets to encourage people to visit and stay longer in the communities. The Community Tourism Coordinator Program supports regional tourism development by funding a dedicated position to focus on growing tourism at the community level. The tourism mentorship programs develop business skills, included but not limited to developing solutions to help resolve any issues. The Youth Mentorship Program provides an opportunity to work with experienced industry professionals who are willing to share their expertise and knowledge with resident youth. The Tourism Training Fund supports tourism business with access to training opportunities to upgrade and gain new skills. The Capacity Support Program, as mentioned earlier, aims to strengthen the foundational capacity of the tourism sector by addressing the challenges limiting growth and competitiveness. So over the next 5 years, tourism will support economic diversification, high-quality employment, and stronger regional participation while respecting community priorities and environmental realities. Success will be measured not only by growth, but by the value tourism delivers to residents, communities, and Indigenous partners. Tourism 2030 positions the Northwest Territories for a future where tourism is stable, inclusive, and sustainable, today and for the long term. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee, for your time today.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Director Kane. The first person I have on my list is MLA Reid. She's online, so if we just give her a second while she jumps in. Ms. Reid, when you're prepared, we're ready for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to the officials today for the presentation. Very thorough. I have some questions around the piece that you have highlighted in your presentation, that Tourism 2025 was, pardon me, a recovery and sustaining strategy, where this is moving to a sustainable strategy. So I have some curiosity around some of the continuing pressures that we're seeing in the territory and in the economy in general. So I'm curious if there is any action that ITI or the GNWT is taking to address high costs that limit tourism growth, such as travel costs, business operating expenses, insurance fees, and the like. And indeed, what lessons have we learned to react quickly to support industry on external pressures, such as the geopolitical turmoil that we're experiencing right now, airline pressures? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll go to the Minister first, and then we'll take it from there. Minister, if you would, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member for the question. Certainly, there are continuing pressures in the territory, and I mean the member mentioned some of them, and that relate directly to, for example, the cost of jet fuel. We are seeing changes within our air travel system. Our air travel, like the number of flights that we see into the territory, is still not returned to pre-COVID numbers. And that is certainly a concern, because we know that predominantly most of our travelers do arrive to the territory through air travel. And so this continues to put pressure on our number of travelers and our ability to continue to grow our numbers of tourists in the territory. The other piece of that is that the member reflected on or asked for was kind of some lessons learned from Tourism 2025. And certainly one of the things that we've learned that continue to be a pressure is both on the labor side and then also on the infrastructure side. So within this strategy, we have increased the funding specifically for infrastructure, and to address some of that as best as we can in the increase of this budget. And then in addition, on the mentorship side, learning from the previous strategy, learning from kind of the successes, and continue to grow on those. And so Director Kane referred to some of those successes and the number of mentorships that were provided, and then continuing to offer those in communities and continuing to grow and expand that programming is certainly important. Another pressure that we continue to see in the Northwest Territories certainly is environmental. So we have had a series of dry years, which does come with forest fires, which does have an impact on our tourism here in the territory, both on providers from less guests if there's lots of smoke, or them having to shut down their operation if they are in a fire region. So that definitely does have an impact not only on that existing year, but then on the confidence of tourists to come back the next year. And so making sure that we are putting out accurate information, correct information, but also supporting operators in fire smarting. And the NWTTA certainly plays a support role in communicating, as well as ITI in that too. And I should say, environment and climate change plays a key role in that too. Thank you.
That was a lot. Ms. Reed, Emily Reed? Excuse me, I seem to have a
Yeah,
hard
thank
time.
you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer. I suppose I was looking to see if there are any anticipatory approaches that if there is another extreme event or I don't want another pandemic. Nobody wants another pandemic, but if the airline pressures get worse specifically, but I'll leave that there as a comment. My next question is. I know we are a world-class destination for Aurora tourism. Indeed, we're starting to gain momentum on Indigenous tourism and cultural tourism. These are fantastic. Um, these are fantastic things that are happening, as you have noted in your presentation. And again, in your presentation, you also noted that you want to put more emphasis on attracting business travelers because it is an area of growth. What are the marketing priorities, perhaps that you have not necessarily mentioned, or that you're looking at and monitoring in the medium term for prioritization, such as geographic or demographic? Thank you.
Okay. Minister, are you going? Yeah, just waiting to see who's taking the question.
Oh,
Minister?
yeah, no, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I fully got the last bit of that sentence there to grasp the entire question. So if I don't get it right on the head, please invite the member to let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer different. So in regards to Aurora, absolutely, that makes up 50% of our tourism here in the territory and why people are traveling. Another almost quarter of our tourism here in the territory is business related, and so certainly that is a huge area, and as Director Kane said, a tourism area that really does have visitors coming to the territory all year long, so it's not in particular segments of the year, which is also helpful. And also not just, here to the capital. Certainly we know that it's going to continue to increase regionally with a lot of the announcements that have happened as well over the last little bit. One of the things that we've also done in this budget is increase our funding to the Convention Bureau in order to support some additional attraction of investment from that business travel sector, which will play a key role in that. So perhaps I will leave that there because I want to clarify if I'm kind of going in the direction that the member wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We don't usually go for third as practice, but just to make sure in this case, Ms. Reed, is that enough? Or did she?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to clarify, and I'm sorry if my voice dropped out. I did note all of the pieces that you've highlighted in your presentation of demographics that you are focusing on specifically, but I'm curious if in your tracking, if there's any emerging markets or demographics that you are trying to pivot to approach beyond Aurora tourism and business tourism. Business travelers, I guess I should say. I note that I've seen many fantastic advertising campaigns on national stages for the Northwest Territories, and so I guess my question is, what markets are we trying to capture moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Minister. Please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I'll start, and then I'm going to pass to Executive Director DeMarc, who is certainly on the forefront of marketing efforts for NWT Tourism. And so, certainly, we're looking not only to attract tourists through national markets, but also international markets. But then also, there's some really interesting things happening in Canada even this summer. When we look to the FIFA World Cup that'll be in Canada this summer, that's a huge opportunity clear across Canada. We typically know that travelers that come to countries for World Cups stay on average of about 5 weeks and are typically they come prepared to spend money. So we certainly want them to know that the Northwest Territories is an opportunity. And the other thing that we often see in FIFA World Cup destinations is people who call those places home often want to get out and leave. And so certainly welcoming residents from British Columbia into the Northwest Territories is another piece that we're looking at as immediate opportunities. But I would like to, through yourself, Mr. Chair, pass to Executive Director DeMarc.
And thank you for that. EDE DeMarc, if you would help us through this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. So just further to the minister's notes, so FIFA is one of the big opportunities that we've been working on, really putting marketing in front of fan groups for countries that are coming to witness FIFA here in Canada. So we're pretty excited about the opportunities that we've been working in that space. Also, as she mentioned, definitely marketing to Toronto and Vancouver and area residents that maybe while their cities are extremely busy, they might want to get away to something that's a little bit more peaceful and welcoming and warming. So we're definitely looking at those twofold. Just to MLA's Reed's kind of further questions about emerging markets. So we have primary international markets. We have, of course, Canada is our main market as the domestic market definitely wants to come and experience the Northwest Territories. But we also have our primary international markets that we work very closely with Destination Canada on, that they've identified are very good markets for the Northwest Territories, those being China, Japan, Korea, Germany, Australia, and emerging markets that we're working on, and many of you may have seen it coming to the territories over the last little while, is Mexico, the UK, and France. So those are new markets that we're learning and working on and marketing to.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the information. Just as a reminder to everyone, the next order of questions will be MLA Morris, then MLA McNeely, and MLA Morgan, and then Narasu, so everyone knows where they are in the queue. The next thing is we are on a time constraint, so I would, without sounding too abrupt or mean, that was a long exchange, the last one. We're never going to get through our presentation. So I'm encouraging both the minister, staff, and of course MLAs as well, and that'll force me to be ensure people are moving along, so we all at least get one full round in. That said, I now have MLA Morris up next. Or, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I really appreciate that you're measuring outcomes and not just delivering programs. I thought that was a highlight of the report, and something I've spoken to a lot since getting into this role, wanting to see departments doing that. So very much appreciate that. In some cases, some of the outcomes you're measuring, I think, are pretty clear. Tourism shows increased economic contribution to the NWT's GDP. I mean, that's like those are numbers that you can measure. Some of the other outcomes are a bit less concrete. So a skilled and knowledgeable tourism workforce, that's not really a measurable outcome. It's an outcome, but I'm just curious to get to the question. What I'm trying to understand is, for some of these ones where it's not really something that's measurable with numbers, or it could be measurable with numbers, how are we measuring the impact of what a skilled and knowledgeable workforce looks like, for example?
Okay, thank you. Minister?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So certainly one of our key measurements is guest experience. And so there is a lot of information and surveys that are collected, a lot of access to information from guests and the type of even reviews that they're leaving. And so it's a lot of times even anecdotal that can be collected, as well as survey information. So you may see when you're at the airport, sometimes people come and ask you about your experience. So certainly we do our darndest to collect information on guest experience. In addition to that, you know, some previous outputs you may have seen would have been things like how many people showed up to a meeting to learn about training or to learn about an opportunity, whereas what we're trying to show is people actually carrying through on those opportunities and ending up with training at the end of the day, and ending up with that experience that increases that guest experience, but also the opportunities for residents themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I mean, just on that one, if I'd be interested in some follow-up on that, just speaking to those intended impacts in the table on, it's page 53 of the PDF I'm looking at, but I don't know what page of the actual guide it is. But yeah, I'd just be interested in getting an expansion upon what we mean by gold standard for visitor service and what we're measuring to achieve that, just so I have an understanding of what we're trying to do.
Minister, can you commit to that so Mr. MLA Morris can have a different distinct question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would be happy to share that and then welcome feedback from committee if they see other opportunities as well.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure you get a distinct and an answer on the question.
Yep. I have a few. One that I've had is whether, so I see this document as being pretty generalist towards kind of the whole territory and thinking about, but something I mean, we are a fairly small territory. There are specific things that can be done. So are we also identifying specific opportunities that aren't being fully realized on top of kind of the generalization? And I'll name a few. I mean, one is that we don't have a lot of local capacity for tour operations in Henny National Park, which is a place which gets a huge amount of tourists, and there's a very steady business opportunity there that NWT businesses aren't currently able to capitalize on. Another one is cruise ship tourism. Like, we know that there's cruise ships visiting a few communities in the NWT. That's a very specific thing that we could be focusing on growing. So are we looking at things like specifics like that, where it's an opportunity where there's a bit of a gap between our full realization of that opportunity, rather than just generalizing? Because there are some very specific things that I think where there's growth potential. Are we kind of identifying those opportunities and coming up with specific plans related to those?
Thank you. Minister, if you would, with that question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I'll start and then I'll see if any of my colleagues would like to add in. So we are doing some specific, not just outreach, but then also training. So for example, the example that the member used in regards to cruise ships, so specific training for cruise ship communities does happen in order to support local residents with what exactly the cruise ships are looking for, what their guests are looking for as experiences, and then making sure that we're making connections between residents and also the programs that are offered through tourism too. So if they're wanting to expand infrastructure in a community, that the information is shared on what some of those funding programs might be. In addition to that, also one of the key areas that we often hear about is more options for that high value guest. So the people that are looking for a more luxury travel experience. And so anytime that I am meeting with, for example, Indigenous governments or organizations who are bringing up a desire to see different opportunities in tourism, I'm always sharing that information with them. And then we've even had ambassadors from other countries who have reached out and said, hey, we want to get involved in tourism. We've got some businesses that we'd like to connect. And so that offer is always there for being able to connect different parties. And then in addition to that, one of the biggest markers of a success of a business is somebody has to be passionate about it for it to actually work. So it has to be something that the business operator truly wants to do and wants to really dig in. Running a business is not a 9 to 5. It always ends up being your life. And so making sure it's something that somebody feels strongly about and enjoys doing means that the guest enjoys it too. And so making sure that we're also speaking to what people want to develop and create in their community is important. Is there anything anybody would like to add? Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Oh,
Oh, no, it's okay.
okay, yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, next I believe I have MLA McNeely. You're next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation. It was, I felt it was really good, but there's always a but to make things better. And the thing that, I'm glad you're recovering from the 2025 plan. There was a lot of disruptions in the 2025 plan. But broadening the inventory or the menu to our average guests would recognize, what is your plan to recognize these additional attractions? Tourists come to the Northwest Territories for that ultimate experience, as we know, and we have to target and advertise those destinations. So I'm thinking about the previous assembly that I was on. I was quite surprised to to see a tour bus turned into a mobile home when I visit the campgrounds in Inuvik. And to my surprise, there was a chimney outside of the vehicle and a couple outside having a barbecue. So I went over, introduced myself, and they were from Mexico. And their intent was to visit the Igloo Church and go swimming in the Arctic Ocean. So that experience tells me we need to incorporate destinations to give the menu to the average traffic individual and say, here, have you thought about going to Delaney? It only takes an hour and 15 minutes, and this is what they have. It's their cultural experience to harvest fish. Here, it's a commercial activity. In that destination, that experience would offer the actual life of drilling a hole in 6 feet of ice. So for that experience would turn a commercial destination into a traditional experience for the tourist. So broadening our menu of destinations, I think could be added on to this plan. But I respect the plan. We just got to groom it a little bit more and make it more attractive by recognizing, as my colleague Mr. Morris mentioned, we have to broaden our potential. And so that's just a note to improving the plan, and I'd like to hear your feedback on what are you doing to broaden the destinations within this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Melly, I now go to the minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I would really like the opportunity to pass to Executive Director DeMarc on this one. They have done some really cool initiatives to generate interest in the Northwest Territories and also to support awareness for guests of opportunities, especially outside of Yellowknife, in communities and relationships with tour providers too.
Thank you,
Oh,
Minister.
sorry, we're on the, no problem. It's a process of identifying folks not only for the mics, but for staff and including the recording purpose, so don't worry. Appreciate your enthusiasm. That said, EDE DeMarc, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to answer, Minister. So I think if you visit the Spectacular Northwest Territories website, every community in the Northwest Territories has a page on the website. And we definitely are looking to try to make sure that in all of the marketing that we're doing, we're mentioning all of the regions, as many of the communities as we possibly can. When it comes time to direct visitors to communities, we often have to make sure that we are directing them to product that they can purchase or experiences that they can purchase. So I think that goes back to talking about development of actual tourism product and making sure that when a visitor comes into a community, they know who they can go to for that experience, and making sure that we're making that connection as often as we can. So our marketing goals are always to make sure that we're connecting visitors that are interested in the Northwest Territories with experiences that are there for them to not always purchase, but experience. So it has to be something that's readily available in the community, but we always, through our social channels, through all of the opportunities that we have, are making sure that we're trying to highlight the regions and the communities as much as we can, and and connect people with all of the experiences that they have in those communities.
Okay. Miss, you had something further to add to MLA McNeely's question, please, if you would.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Donnelly is slightly humble. They do amazing work over at NWT Tourism. They have even done things like appear on Good Morning America, and instantly on their website saw an instant spike in visitors, instant spike in booking, and so making sure that we're supporting guests also on the ITI side in order to have that product, as Donnelly is talking about, to be available, and that kind of instant click and buy for travelers is really important. And so some of the products that we have directly support that. So not only through business planning, through infrastructure building, and then also on the Prosper NWT side for being able to do kind of the digitization of a business. So making that website and having that e-commerce capability as well is all very important. And so we've got a stacking ability of products that people can use to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. MLA McNeely, further, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the reply, and I do respect Donna's passion to make a difference here for our territory. And I realize she's doing an excellent job. My next question there, before I have to leave for another Teams, is industry gap analysis here. How will the $300,000 funding allocated in the 26-27 main estimates for this initiative be spent? Thank you.
Thank you. Just looking for a volunteer. No rush. Minister?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, it's specifically the $300,000 for the industry capacity program?
I'll have MLA McNeely reaffirm his direction.
Thank
on
you.
Specifics.
I just nodded my head there, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, certainly we'll have to pass along for exactly how that $300,000 will be spent, so I'd like to pass to Deputy Minister Strand.
DM Strand?
Oh,
Unless we have another
Director
eager
Kane.
volunteer. Director Kane
Thank you.
keeps working its way down the system.
So the year one, as you mentioned, as I mentioned in the presentation as well, there is a gap analysis that we'll be performing to identify where exactly we should be investing that. And that will largely determine where we focus the money. So until we do that gap analysis, we have an idea, especially from the engagement that we conducted while coming up with the new strategy, that there's some pretty obvious gaps that we've heard from folks and can see ourselves, but this more formal analysis will show that. So that's where the money will be put to initially. And then from there, we will have to make, informed decisions on where to invest those dollars. It's a capacity program, so it'll be focused largely on building capacity within the regions, communities, and with the people, operators, potential operators. I hope that somewhat answers, but yeah. Thank you.
Mr. McNeely, I don't usually do this, but did that get close enough, or do we?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll take that as we need to do more work and identification to the analysis. Thank you.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, next, I believe I have MLA Morgan, followed by MLA Narasu. Ms. Morgan, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've identified that one of the key challenges is workforce or shortages in labor and workforce development. And so one of the items under capacity building is academic partnerships. And there's a reference to collaboration with Aurora College to create opportunities to promote tourism as a career path. Can you tell me, does Aurora College have like a degree program related to tourism? Does it have credential programs or certifications of any kind? Is there a plan to create those things? I'm just trying to understand exactly how this item will be operationalized. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for that. Minister, if you would, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, certainly there are a number of tourism type businesses or pieces that connect directly and also indirectly. One of the key programs that Aurora College has, I was just at their graduation in Fort Smith last year, was business administration, which obviously plays a key role in people being set up for operating a business, right? Those foundational pieces. In addition to that, Aurora College is currently in the process of doing their first Made in the North degree program, which is a business administration, business-focused degree with a focus from there on Indigenous governments. And then there's also things, for example, that are, or programs that are indirectly related to tourism itself, whether they have kind of a specific tourism operator program that is specific for the tourism industry. They don't at this time. But certainly one of the goals of Aurora College is to make sure that they are offering programming that is relevant to what people in the North are looking for. It has to be student-driven, otherwise you'll have empty classrooms. So certainly making sure that they are, one, doing that, but then two, being able to prioritize their offerings for what is going to have the biggest draw for students in classrooms, but making sure that we ultimately are supporting the career aspirations of Northern students, and entrepreneurship and business is going to be a huge key part of that. Thank you.
And thank you, Minister. MLA Morgan, if you would further.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any investigation of possible partnerships between Aurora College and other, colleges, institutes, institutions in other parts of the country that do offer really specialized, even just like certificate programs or certain courses or certain sort of blocks of skills that there's a way to partner and offer students up here some of those things, even just to give people a taste of what it might be like to go and get a degree somewhere in, I did not study this, but like adventure, recreation, adventure, tourism, these kinds of things that they could get a sense of what more they could do if they're really passionate and interested in this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Minister, if you would, to MLA Morgan's question, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, and thank you to the member for the question. Certainly partnerships for all of our post-secondary institutions are key. There's no way that we can design and offer, every single program that the territory would probably like to see on our own, and nor does it make financial or capacity sense. We're way better off to partner with other jurisdictions and other institutions to be able to broaden our offerings, especially where there is opportunities to do more and bring more to people's home communities by including some virtual options in there as well. In addition to that, it doesn't only have to be through Aurora College. There's other institutions in the Northwest Territories that are getting accredited in different areas. We now have an accredited program that is doing logistics, for example, and certifications in logistics. And so continuing to make sure that we're looking broadly is important. And then another piece of that is through Education, Culture, and Employment's workforce development funding, there's also opportunities for employers. And, it doesn't have to be like a very specific tourism operator that does this. It can actually be a community coming together and doing specific training where they're bringing a trainer into a community if they're wanting to get into a certain area of tourism that they don't have the training for at this time. So it doesn't have to be kind of a one-off. It can be more community-focused as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving forward to MLA Narasu. We seem to be moving right along, which is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, very enlightening. It's Tourism 2025 targets, anticipated 103,000 visitors and 170 million in revenue. Was this target achieved? If not, why not? And what were the what were the causes of these targets not being achieved, or was it achieved? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MLA Narasu. I'm just looking for someone. Minister, if you want to start.
Thank you so much. So certainly we did not reach the return to 103,000 visitors a year. This past year, we were at just over 75,000 visitors. Our intention post-COVID certainly was to return to pre-COVID numbers, but we have seen a number of environmental factors that continue to influence our tourism numbers, being floods and fires being kind of the primary causes of that. And then also, as I mentioned before, our air traffic, or so the flights into the territory, have also not returned to the same number as pre-COVID. Thank you.
And thank you for that. MLA Narasu, anything further?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The road from Inuvik to Tuck has definitely increased the visitors. I've seen that over the years. There's a number of increased number of visitors coming from the south and going all the way to Tuck. That is good, but on the way, these smaller communities don't have the services, like accommodation services, restaurants, service stations, garages, and also, it's important that ITI works with the highway department to improve highway. Safety is a big factor in this, because when I was working on the ferry, there was couple of incidents during that time, so it is important. It's how will this 2030 tourism program project increase these services within the smaller communities? Because when people travel from the Yukon, they stop at Eagle Plains, then they have to, their next stop is in Fort McPherson, which is about 180 kilometers. And the roads on the Yukon side is not the very best, and more likely they need services. Klavik has a rich history. Fort McPherson has a rich history, and we have to promote these with visitors, with the government, with local people. We have a lot of artists, and what improvements can you see in a multitude of different areas, services, infrastructure, like buildings to host artists, and other areas in that, other areas in attracting visitors to visit and stay within our communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Either way is fine. I've been called worse. That said, I'll call upon the minister for that response to MLA Narasu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member for the question. Certainly, we do, I'll start with the road. Certainly, we work closely with our counterparts over in the Yukon, and right across Cabinet are often, advocating for just awareness on that top end of the Dempster Highway and the need for a coordinated effort for road maintenance, for sure. And that's, even in my role as industry minister, have had conversations with their previous industry minister as well as their previous environment and climate change minister and energy minister as well. And those conversations certainly continue. So we try to be as collaborative as possible. And a lot of that centers on awareness and information sharing. In regards to, specifically small communities and small community infrastructure, this new strategy does see an increase in community tourism infrastructure contributions, because that infrastructure piece is something that we heard the most about in the engagement when we were talking to literally hundreds of people that participated in this feedbacks. And we have to say a huge thank you, because it got a lot of uptake, a lot of participation, and that's what really drives being able to make changes like this, is the participation of residents. So huge thank you. In addition, different things that ITI has done, for example, is supporting the Visitor Information Center in Tuck, and also the Community Tourism Coordinator as well, who was funded through ITI, but then we've also done secondments from ITI staff to the hamlet in order to support some of those efforts. And then the biggest piece of that, like I had said previously to the member for Frame Lake, is one of the strongest pieces there is making sure that we have champions in communities who want to drive this work and are wanting to work with creating opportunities through some of these programs. So we are very enthusiastic. We have very enthusiastic regional staff who want to see the success, and connecting residents and those staff is really important. Thank you.
Minister, we've made one complete round, and I want to thank committee for following, making sure that their questions and, of course, your answers are a little tighter. Noting our constraint on time, which, interestingly enough, you're back before the next committee at the bottom of the next hour. That said, I'm going to squeeze in at least one question and then maybe see if other members have more they'd like to ask. You did talk about the conference travel or conference focus. I'm not going to go to the specific line, but I think you know what I'm referring to is the conference type of travel and supports. And I'm just curious on what type of analysis do you do with respect to return on investment? So in other words, I'm going to give I think a fictitious example, because I don't want to single out any one industry for having a difficult time or a struggle process. I'll say the Garter Snake Tourism Association, which there isn't, by the way, but there are garter snakes close to Fort Smith, and it's always been a personal dream of mine to see them, although I've lived here almost forever. I've never made the journey. That said, if we only have one person doing this and they only get 2 tourists a year, but yet, they ask for a lot of money and we support them to get off the ground, but there is no real return on that. Do we do that type of analysis to ask ourselves certain sectors of the tourist area get more support versus less, whereas we get, say, another sector, and I want to single out a particular sector, but they bring in an enormous amount of tourism and spread opportunities, jobs, etc. And do they get the same type of support? And really, at the end of the day, I'm trying to ask and illustrate a little bit of a question is that how do we support and develop potential? How do we support people who are creating returns? And do we focus in on that specifically? Because it's important to make sure everyone gets a piece of the pie, but we can't, it's a very small pie. And we have to make sure that we're getting some type of investment and return on areas. And I'm just curious on how that type of analysis is done, because certain areas of tourism just don't get uptick where others do. And I think it's important because, of course, as we all know, money is not runneth over, as they say. So any thoughts on how you do that stress analysis and return, focus in on where our investment dollars go? Thank you. Minister.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe I'll start and then I can pass to, I'm thinking Donna Lee for some data. The data that they collect over at Tourism NWT is pretty incredible. Certainly, we're looking at not just how many people are coming, but the average spend for different types of travelers as well, so that we can make some informed decisions like that. But then the other piece of it too is we want to make sure that we are supporting the Northerners who need support. There's obviously, more cost to creating an opportunity, for example, in Det'anchogh versus Yellowknife, and more access to existing travel markets here in Yellowknife as well. So making sure that we are investing supports where they're needed and where they also increase potential for future travel is part of it. So through yourself, Mr. Chair, I'd love the opportunity to pass to Executive Director DeMarc.
And thank you for that. EDE DeMarc, if you had some thoughts.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when we look at the business travel, there's actually a couple different segments in that. We call it meetings, incentive, conference, and events. So there's different types of spend for different types of travel, but we definitely know that that is the highest category of spend overall. For example, and in the north it is higher than in the south as well. For example, business travel would be about $500 a day. Sport tourism travel is about $440 a day. And incentive travel, which is for some that maybe might not know, where you kind of send your top performers of your company for an incentive type of trip, is about $700 a day. We work very closely with a lot of different organizations across Canada, specifically Destination Canada, Meetings Mean Business, to get that information and verify that information, and then also work with them to attract those types of travelers to the Northwest Territories.
Okay. And the reason I drew the business travel is it seems like it's an untapped market versus others. I'm curious if they've been tapped to the point that they're not delivering, and I'm just curious on that type of analysis. Maybe just briefly, not seeing another question from members, I'll throw in, could you expand on how you're intending to or hoping to build youth mentorship in the program of longer-term tourism development? I appreciate, I'll just say this by way of background, I appreciate MLA Morgan's point about, is there a sort of a certificate or diploma program, but I mean, you probably don't teach culture process that people have grown up their whole life or have been embraced by it. Say, as one guy would say, thousands of years of, credentials behind me, to where I am. But I think her point was well made in the sense of that we need some structure and process. But building on that, can you tell me and give some examples to the committee as to where we're seeing investments into youth mentorship, so we're actually building the next transition of the capacity? And the last point I'll make is all I ever hear is the public service is bailing on us, they're retiring, et cetera, and we don't have anyone to fill that. Well, I suspect that's the same problem in the tourism industry, which is, people are getting older, and we need people to continue to dovetail and support and the continuation. So if you understand sort of the area of concern, we'll see how it goes. Look forward to your answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, you're absolutely right, making sure that we're creating opportunities for that mentorship for people who have the experience to connect with youth and connect with kind of our next up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the territory across industries, across sectors is so important. And very specifically here in tourism, we're doing that work. Part of that too, though, is some of the course offerings and some of the opportunities to connect with youth in different ways that are still in high school. And like you had specifically mentioned, Mr. Chair, cultural tourism. And so empowering youth to, first of all, understand the desire and the fact that is a marketable piece, that people do want to come and learn from them, do want to have those experiences with them, and do have huge financial value and that want to compensate them for their knowledge and their experience is part of it. And so some of the course offerings, even within the transition to the BC curriculum, have a lot more of a broader component of entrepreneurial courses. So entrepreneurship, marketing, that also plays a huge role in this as well. And then also through our career education advisors, them having the information in order to be able to share with youth about different opportunities and different courses that help connect them with those opportunities, and mentorships too. It doesn't have to be, you can only start learning about this once you're of a certain age, or you don't have to own a business in order to learn business. You can actually be doing these things, hopefully, as you go, and making sure that we're connecting with as many residents as possible is key. And I'd be more than happy to share more information with MLAs about what those mentorships look like and how they're accessible, for sure. Thank you.
For the sake of time, I'll say I will accept that, and I look forward to any strategy you can provide showing us where you're going, and maybe if it's possible to put in some success points where we've seen some linkages of this working. I now have MLA Narasu, and in the second round, we're going to try to do one question each member and see if we can get through as well. So MLA Narasu, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One business in Fort McPherson, Tent and Canvas shop, has been in the community for about 40 years, and it's still really successful. One idea that people always bring up to me is, will the government look at offering equity into this business from a local Indigenous government to, give more exposure to the, you put a logo on something, and especially with Indigenous logo, you give great exposure to the product and to the local Indigenous governments. And, right now, for 40 years, all they've been receiving is employment opportunities. You look at Titlit Service Cooperative Limited, they have the word Titlit on it, and that's the name of the community, versus Northern. The Northern store is just more of a regional or not defined, but you put something with Titlit on it, it gives you great exposure, and just wondering if there's any chance that they'd look at giving greater equity to the Indigenous governments of the communities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MLA Narasu. Minister, if you would, please.
Thank you so much. So yes, absolutely. So one of the priorities that I've identified for Prosper NWT, so those subsidiaries sit with Prosper NWT. One of the priorities I identified was working with the current structures of our subsidiaries and working with communities to figure out what the future looks like. So as an example, with Dene Fur Cloud that is located in Fort Providence, we were able to work with community members in order to reset the ownership structure of Dene Fur Cloud in order to do some of just exactly what the member is talking about. Specifically with Fort McPherson Tent and Canvas, we have a very, very passionate manager up there right now who has great ideas and is working on evolving Fort McPherson Tent and Canvas, and they make incredible product. I highly recommend their product to anybody who's interested. And Prosper NWT on the business operation side of things has been working through mentorship with their current manager on both supporting the direction that she's working to go, but then also supporting potential kind of future aspirations too. And so certainly keen to see the next chapter of Fort McPherson Tent and Canvas, but certainly want to make sure that we're supporting the operation to be successful. Very happy to have a conversation with local Indigenous governments on what that future looks like. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. MLA Narasu, anything further?
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay, not a problem. I go to committee just in case members have a question or two. Okay. While they're thinking, I have a quick question then, and hopefully they'll. I'm curious on capacity analysis. So I can't speak to every region. I mean, I've been to every region personally, but what I'm saying is I can't speak to their capacity. So for example, in Yellowknife, we have hotel beds in the range of 1,000 to 1,200. I don't know the exact number. Maybe EDE DeMarc actually knows the actual capacity levels. I suspect she does. She seems like an extremely sharp lady. That said, bringing more tourism just doesn't work, which is if you don't have the beds, they have nowhere to stay. I mean, maybe if someone wants to come in for the day, but I mean, it's pretty challenging as well. How do we do some analysis around that? So if we're trying to attract more people, where do we put them? And, I mean, there must be some thoughts around that strategy. We do have potential hotels coming online, but that's not, say, within this tourism year. That's probably next tourism year at the earliest if we're lucky. And how do we encourage the tourism industry to respond to that need? Because we talk a lot about developing tourism, trying to expand tourism and strengthen it. But if we don't have the beds to bring more people, it kind of seems odd, you know, that who are we bringing? Like, how, we just can't squeeze more people in a room. So some thoughts on that particular sort of juggernaut or Gordian knot, I guess, maybe in this sense. Your thoughts, Minister?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So certainly number of beds is a limiting factor for sure for how many people we can bring to the territory. There are currently 3 new hotel builds that are in various degrees of process here in Yellowknife. There's also an anticipated new hotel for Inuvik as well. And so we're not the only ones as a government that's watching this. Certainly industry is as well for different economic opportunities, especially right now with, you know, we're seeing more and more eyes on Canada, more and more eyes certainly on the north as well, which I'm seeing more eyes on the north and more buzz about the north now than I have seen in my entire life, which is very exciting. And that doesn't just bring the major projects and nation building projects, the D&D infrastructure, like there's the business side of that, but it also starts to turn, you know, people's eyes to the north for tourism. Oh, wait, I've not seen that area. We should go check that out. And so certainly we want to make sure that we're welcoming those guests, that we're able to receive those guests, but then also able to diversify as we're trying to also drive people outside of the capital and outside of, sorry, I'll just say outside of the capital. So in addition to that, there are other communities that are creating more opportunities. I recently stayed at a brand new, newly renovated, beautiful B&B in Det'anchogh. And so there are different opportunities like that and different business opportunities that people are looking to as they start to see more and more people coming to their home communities. And with additional road builds, we'll continue to see more opportunities where people are able to drive in, Northerners included. There's going to be a lot of people who've not been able to drive into northern communities or the cost of air travel has been far too prohibitive that are going to be able to start to explore the Northwest Territories in new ways.
I'm just going to go, thank you for that. I'm just going to go to MLA Morris maybe for the last question because we're running out of time. But I would just point out that I'm just going to provide a comment. I'm not looking for an answer per se, but I've heard from locals, if you want local tourism, are looking for more park space to park in. So like camping space, et cetera, along the highway. I've heard so many people say the road to Wati, if there was a camping place there, they would use the opportunity to bring their RVs, et cetera, and maybe even explore a little more local tourism. So just a point I hear constantly. So not just Prelude, not just here in town, not just localized, but could they go to these little pockets? So I'll go to MLA Morris for the last question this morning, and then probably, or if not likely, committee will follow up with a few written questions as well, given the time. MLA Morris, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my last question is just about coming back to the plan and what you guys are looking to do in measurable outcomes. I know I've heard in the past from talking to tourism folks that infrastructure is a big thing, and tourism-related infrastructure is desperately needed in the NWT. I'm assuming we must have a plan for what's being built over the next 4 years. I'm just curious, you know, if we can see that plan, if we can get an idea of what exactly is being built, but also, how are we prioritizing what's getting built based on needs? So where perhaps it would have the highest impact to tourism in a certain way. I don't know if I'm putting the question right, but I guess what data are we using to help us prioritize what needs to be built first and most importantly?
Thank you for that. Minister, if you would, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, more than happy to provide that. That's something that we bring out at capital planning and so have in front of me during in the month of October. So certainly happy to share that again. Certainly, ITI does do a gap analysis of, what is needed, and then a wish list. This term, the focus for capital has definitely been on community infrastructure, like schools, like health centers, things like that, not, or road maintenance, not on tourism infrastructure. And for tourism infrastructure specifically, our focus and prioritization has been on safety and accessibility. So making sure that if something needs to be fixed because it's a safety concern, if something needs to be changed, like for example, a ramp needs to be added for accessibility, or if it's something to do with an asset being permanently damaged if we don't get to it, for example, a roof on a structure. So that's how we prioritize what needs to be dealt with first. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Was that clear enough for you, MLA Morris? Just because it's not, we have a ton of time, but I just want to make sure we get the right area you were focusing on.
Yep, it was clear. I mean, I guess I would just say, I mean, I understand that, and I recognize that I myself have emphasized, the need for us to prioritize certain things over others, and that's just the work that we have to do. But I guess I would just hope that, when we are setting priorities, we're thinking about kind of where is there the most need, and where will that have the most impact. So, just analysis on, is there something we could do that would kind of bring more tourists in or enhance tourism experience? And like, if we're thinking about that, not just, because it seems to me like we often strive to just spread things out across the territory. Everybody gets a little bit of something. But I'm hoping that we could think through, how we can be most impactful. Like, where is there the biggest opportunity in this community right now, and focusing on that, and so that there's a strong evidence-based case for what we're looking to build. But just so we're not. I think I've made the point that we have evidence that we can show MLAs and say, like, this is the impact that we could have if we built this thing. I think it helps make the case for why it needs to happen.
I'm going to have to step in here. We have Zoom constraints. We're out of time, basically. So if, Minister, if you want to take what you can from MLA Morris's last point, and if you feel there's need to elaborate a little further, please do in writing. We will follow up in writing in general, but we're out of time for today. So with all due respect, I have to cut it off, and that includes us as well, given the fact that we have another presentation and we have a technical challenge of shutting things down and restarting them to make sure things properly. So folks, it gives me great pain to close today's presentation off. I think we could have found ways to talk for another half an hour, 45 minutes, or even an hour, asking questions with the great folks here. So we have a lot of an important brain trust that's brought us some great information. So Minister, I want to thank you. Normally we'd offer you a moment or two, any final thoughts, but I'm going to have to say no. Timing means just it is what it is. So I want to thank you, including our millions of subscribers, and maybe as pointed out on, I think you said Good Morning America, maybe we have people clicking away at this very moment saying, how do we come to the Northwest Territories, and how do we meet that EDE DeMarc running that great tourism program and whatnot. So that said, at this particular point, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, and have a delightful day. We look forward to seeing everyone soon. Cheers.